It's a good thing that YouTube disabled the downvotes. It it's like, yeah, they all work together. YouTube and the mainstream media and the Hollywood industry and even politics. Because I think one of the reasons they disabled downvotes was because of Biden and Kamala were going to be just to leave those up. But heaven forbid, people are allowed to have a redress of grievance, and you get to tell, like, turning off comments on those kind of videos is like blows my mind. It's like, welcome to 2022 politics. But the thing is, in the Hollywood genre, is like turning off downvotes. The Little Mermaid, I think if you look at the downvotes extension, you can see that it got like, I don't know, like over 1 million or 2 million downvotes or something, and 500,000 upvotes. So yeah, Disney and Google are working together to hide this kind of stuff, because it's not, people don't review bomb things. They're people who hear about things, and if they don't like it, they're going to let you know with the downvotes. That's what the downvotes tell you. And if they like it, it's like, well, isn't the opposite true? Like, couldn't they, I guess, love bomb something and go give something high votes? But, some movies get good reviews, and it's like, and some don't, but you're learning what the people actually want. So using the Eternals as an example, it was something that had a big opening weekend and was projected to do well. And interviews with the people beforehand said, they thought it was going to do well because it was diverse and it was going to appeal to a broad market. And it had this big opening, and then it just dropped, and then it bombed. And you realize, like, well, what that does is people psychologically, they felt burned when you see a return like that, because they saw something that kind of promised and didn't deliver, like a bait and switch. But what that also does is affect future projects where people are not going to continue to shell out, go drive to a theater, pay $15 for a ticket or whatever, depending on where you are. In some places it can be a lot more. Or some people are watching like 3Ds, and it's like crazy expensive, I assume. They're not going to do that again for movies that repeatedly, like the latest, I see superhero genre across markets. There's been a string of these movies that are Eternal, Shang-Chi, the Scarlett Johansson thing, that are just, they're not movies you go to a theater to see. If they're on the streaming service and you already subscribe to it, yeah, all right, you might watch the Eternals. It's like, oh, it's okay, they did some things good, but you wouldn't go to a theater to see any of these movies. Like Scarlett Johansson's not going to bring you into a theater. It's like, oh, so it's like a chick flick, bunch of chicks running around, and I'm guessing the guys are going to be a little bit incompetent and just going to be like kind of girl power. And it's like, it wasn't that way. It wasn't cringy, but you see, like, we know which way the wind is blowing with a lot of these movies. And so you go, oh, I'll just watch it on streaming. Or if you don't have streaming, you're not going to pay for streaming to go get it. It's like, maybe you see it, someone will show it to you somewhere, you go to somebody's house and watch it with somebody. But it's like the energy behind all these movies has ended. Like, I used to think of it, I like to watch movies with people so they can, with movie nerds, because I actually know 2 movie nerds who live in the area who can explain things to me. So I watch movies with them, and they explain the movie to me, like what the director's doing and like the history of all this kind of stuff. And it makes it way more interesting for me, especially for movies that are mediocre. And like a lot of these guys like to talk, and I like to hear their takes on films. But it was, it used to be like, oh yeah, so some new movies we'll get together and watch it, and then after a little while you realize, like, you just kind of, I guess I kind of got behind the Marvel movies, the superhero genre. I guess I missed a few, and then you look around and realize, I missed a ton, and then you come to the realization, I guess I'm just done watching this genre. It's just, there's not, unless I'm going to watch it and make a video out of it. You watch the movies now, you can find them online and go like, oh, why are they making movies like Shang-Chi and the Eternals? Like, or it's the Scarlett Johansson ones. Like, they're not bad movies, but they're not movies you're going to go out of your way to watch, which is not where you want to be if you're making movies. You want people to be on board with seeing movies in sequence, and they're all tied together, and you want them to be connected, and you also want them to buy the t-shirts and the coffee mugs or whatever, all that, toys and like all the stuff that goes along with the movies. Chicks, I'm sure for Halloween they love that Suicide Squad thing when the original one came out like 5 years ago. You want all that energy that goes along with movies, and that is, I think that's all over. I think the whole superhero genre is pretty much over. Anyway, so what happened is rumor, alleged insider claims Marvel Studios' diversity push meant to recoup financial losses from brand's deletion in China. Rumor, yeah, it's I know like the Doomcock rumors, right? This feels accurate because if you watch these movie companies, if you read the news for this kind of stuff, a lot of this feels like, yeah, this is something. This is how they think. Because I was reading the reviews for Eternals, and they said they literally, some reviewers were saying that like, oh yeah, we think the diversity is going to be a big seller for the Eternals. Like, okay. Well, can I ask you, like, why you think that? What leads you to believe that? Is there any empirical evidence that backs that up, or is this just all, hypothetical? And, you start asking those questions, and people kind of get a little defensive. It's like, I don't want to have an argument. I'm just like, why do you think the way you do? Without, like, we don't have to get into a big political argument, like everybody's Islamophobic if you have a slight change of opinion. But it's like, well, why wouldn't it get a big audience? The audience isn't a bunch of incel Nazi racists, are they? Okay, already you're going in the wrong direction here. You're trying to get money from the audience. People kind of forget this is a contractual exchange. You don't have to kiss the audience's toes, but you like that whole attitude of, the audience is toxic. Like, my brothers, are you sure you want to be in sales if you think that the audience, because you're in sales, we're artists. No, you're making a product and you're selling it to somebody, or you're trying to get them to get the streaming show, either in the theater or in the streaming, and more importantly, like toys. And like, no, nobody wants toys for like a Rose Tico type of toy. It's the Rose Tico-ine of the superhero genre. It's probably for Marvel and DC and Fox and Sony, whoever, I don't know, who, like, everyone owns different little pieces of these characters, but that type of thing. It's like, in general, I think of the past 10 years, I think, it's just kind of all Rose Tico, kind of sums it up. And where like people were running over those dolls, and Twitter kids were getting so triggered because somebody said that they were running over the doll and the character wasn't very compelling. And it's like, you're just Islamophobic. See, that's like the wrong attitude. You're saying that you can't criticize these actors because you feel they have a place on the oppression hierarchy, but we don't. They're just actors. They're just people. They don't have a place on. There is no oppression hierarchy for $1 million actor. It's like, we don't believe that, but you do. But these are the people who are making these movies. But as it turns out, they're not making the movies too successfully. Not anymore. Seems like a lot has changed recently. So for whatever reason, China decided to focus on more in-house movies, and maybe combined with a Chinese market who are kind of losing their taste for Western Hollywood because sales are down, and their plan to capture a new American audience is by using more non-white characters. And, again, I would ask these people, like, is this like some hypothetical, like, ivory tower university thing, or is this like, is there any empirical data to support this? And I feel it's probably it's just like they're just in an echo chamber, deep in an echo chamber. And when you're in an echo chamber and you have money to burn, you're going to make a lot of weird decisions when you legitimately have money to burn. Disney is, they can lose money for a long time because they have money coming in from other properties. They're in a weird position. So their logic is that they already have the 55% white American audience. So what they can do is now get the other 45% non-white audience by using more brown characters. But the obvious issue, it's like if you've followed comics for the past 10 years, is the audience retention. Are people going to watch movies that look like the Eternals? And the Eternals, so budget $200 million, that you got to add in advertising and stuff like that. Total box office was $400 million. Does it make twice its money? No, that's still a bomb. That means you're still negative $200 million before you even crossed even, probably. So that's actually going to get a sequel, which, the movie bombed. The movie lost over $100 million, and it's going to get a sequel. That's like, stop to think about that for a minute. That's not, these people aren't following the financial. This is a religion. These people, it's not. Yes, they're planning to make an Eternals Part 2. I probably with the same characters, So those characters, in case you haven't seen the movie, and it's not hard to watch. Like Ms. Marvel is just impossible to get to. It's watchable, but you wouldn't want to pay for it, and you definitely wouldn't want to see it again. There's just nothing. It's just like it's a lot of CGI. It's like a lot of the movies that have come out in the past eight years. It's like, oh yeah, they're fine if they're on and you're in the room. Yeah, maybe you watch it if you have nothing better to do. But like, that's not what movie companies want to hear. That if you have nothing better to do, you might want to watch it. It's like, no. We want you to buy the tickets, buy the T-shirts, and then buy the Halloween costume and buy toys for your kids. Like, no, that's gonna happen. It's gonna. If you can watch it free online on your tablet, maybe half pay attention to it, yeah, but there's nothing, like it doesn't have legs and it won't spread to other markets. So the Eternals, that specific movie, got really bad reviews across all the platforms, and it was a financial loss, negative $200 million before it broke even. But did it bomb because it was too non-white, or just because it was a boring movie and people are kind of losing their taste in Marvel? Yeah, I don't know. It was like Suicide Squad Part 2. There was just nothing to the movie. It's like, yeah, it was visually appealing, but as soon as you're done with it, there was just like no connection to it, to the characters that were they weren't likable. They were just kind of there on screen. It felt like I follow this stuff from looking at pop culture with a kind of a different eye, so I know like what's going on. But like if you weren't following it, you just look at a movie that was just in and out of your consciousness immediately, and would lead you no desire to go attach yourself to this movie, future movie projects with these actors. It would kind of leave you with a negative feeling with all the actors involved, because like something was off about all the actors, the movie, everything just felt subtly off, which is kind of a feeling like all of America is going through right now. Anyway, so Batman. Oh, and somebody said like this guy's out of shape. It's like, I don't know how good a shape he needs to be in. It seemed like it's in okay shape. Like if you're underwater, you're going to have a little bit of layer of fat because you got to have some insulation. It's like not everyone has to be shredded all the time. So somebody, I think one of the artists like was 60 and he posed with his shirt off to show that he was more shredded than this guy. But I don't know. It's like you don't have to be in like peak conditioning all the time. Anyway, so Batman and Spider-Man have race swapped all the characters except for the main ones. And they hit $1 billion. So why did they succeed and Eternals fail? The problem with trying to sell to a diverse market is you're using characters that people find a connection with, but America has so many different groups right now that it's going to be hard to make a movie that grabs all of the audience, because you've got this big chunk of Euro, this big chunk of, different Latin American countries, and then African contingent, and then you got a handful of vaguely Asian from, different parts of the world. So you got these three big chunks to market to. That puts you in a bad position where like a few decades ago, you just made everyone, a fair-skinned person of the light, and you add in like a black sidekick. Or in the case of like something like Goonies from the 80s, I think it was an Asian sidekick, and that was a recipe that would appeal to most people. They would get the biggest audience because that was the country at the time. Now, here's the thing. I think it still would. If you make a film with, say, the 77 Star Wars demographics, I think Lando was the one guy in there, other than the voice of Darth. I feel certain that it would get the widest audience base. The reason they're not is not economic. It's ideological. We're not kidding when we say that woke is a religion to them. They're losing money doing this kind of woke stuff. It's like they get triggered when we say woke. What is it even is woke? And some people define it in different ways. But like we know what we're talking about, and I think they probably know what they're talking about also. They will lose money doing that, and they're going to continue to do it. Like Eternals is getting a sequel. That should kind of catch your attention, because you're saying, I don't know if this is the first time in Hollywood where something lost hundreds of millions of dollars, and they go, yeah, we're going to make a sequel. You look at them and you're like, what's going on? Now, the thing is, there's a chance the sequel might actually even do better. They probably learn from the mistakes, and maybe it will do better. It's like it had to find an audience and it will grow with people. That's not as crazy an audience because you're doing something with like superhero movies are different because you've got these IPs that you own. So even technically, if a movie did lose money or wasn't a huge hit the first time, I guess logically you could continue on with it because you're trying to establish these characters and you're trying to sell more than the movies. You're trying to sell products associated with the movie. So it's not crazy, but it's. I mean, it was a pretty big bomb then when the first one came out to not change things up, like to swap out the character, swap out the director. I think the same director is doing a sequel, so that's the kind of the weird part. I mean, there's a lot of weird stuff going on in Hollywood, and like we say, yeah, this is a religion, Bolshevism, Marxism, globalism, whatever you want to call it. It's a religion to them. This is firmly ideological, and it's not like we're not saying this. We don't have tinfoil hats on. We say they're making these movies that lose money, continue to lose money, and they're making them anyway. They're not chasing a dollar. If they were chasing a dollar, they would make some hot blonde-haired, blue-eyed chick be the main girl and some, Brad Pitt looking dude be the main guy, and you'd probably get the biggest audience. That would sell fairly well even today. And like Twitter kids say they're woke, but you also know it would grab a big audience across of different white and non-white Americans would appeal to that. They would find that audience. It's like they can't see themselves in those characters because they're not whatever Brad Pitt is. But it didn't matter for a long time, and it would still sell. And movie companies aren't doing that because it's like a cult to them. It's just hard to understand because like these are billion-dollar cults, but they are cultish behavior. Their primary motive, like FBI analyzes motive. It's like, yeah, money, okay, but you're gonna have to put that aside because it's actually not. It's up there. But the ideology of wokeness, globalism, Marxism, this kind of bizarro anti-white hatred, that's up there as well. If they wanted to, if some movie company just said, you know what, we're gonna make movies like the old days, like 70s and 80s movies with a primarily European American cast, I feel positive that those movies would be big hits. Yes, the Twitter kids would kvetch all they wanted to, but I still think the movies would do pretty well. Movie companies aren't doing that, at least not the big ones. Like that's not even a consideration. They're just gonna sail this ship until it sinks, and then they'll just move on to something else. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. See you guys all next episode.